and welcome to episode 1 of Robert's Kitchen. I'm Robert Palleja. I run and own De Oliva's Oil and Vinegar on historic Main Street in St. Charles, Missouri. And I'm a Navy veteran. I love to cook and I love to eat. I'm going to show you things that are quick, easy, fresh, using great ingredients. They're very simple. I think you're going to love it. I wanted to start out with something simple, and there's very little more simple than a good basic pesto. And what we typically think about when we think about pesto is we think about pesto alla genovese. The word comes from pestare, which means to pound. And we're going to do something a little bit different because, again, we like easy. I love to cook, but more importantly, I love to eat. It's just a matter of using a few fresh ingredients. People think that good food has to be complicated with tons of ingredients, and that just isn't true. The three things that I believe that you have to have for everything to follow are a high quality fat, whether that's one of my olive oils. Sometimes bacon fat is appropriate. Sometimes real butter. Just don't use cheap oils, and you'll be fine. Another thing you need is a high quality acid, whether that's one of my vinegars or you actually squeeze a lemon as appropriate. Sometimes yogurt is your acid. And then the last thing you need is a good high quality salt. Anything, as I like to say, anything that doesn't come out of the blue paper can, a sea salt, usually does a really, really good job. For most of my cooking, is a sel gris, which means gray salt. This is a French salt. We know that a typical traditional pesto alla genovese is made with the ingredients that we mentioned before, and they use a marble mortar and a wooden pestle. And then what you do is you sit there and you pound it all until it all makes a paste. And then you add copious amounts of a good high quality olive oil, and then that's your sauce. This time of year, it's the month of January. You're not going to get tons of fresh basil. You can buy tons of fresh basil. You're going to pay for that. But you're going to be able to go to the grocery store and get all kinds of other great green things that will also make great pestos. I found that raw unsalted cashews, even organics, can typically be purchased for less than $10 a pound, so about the third of the price as pine nuts. The same with walnuts. This here is raw and unsalted pistachios, and these make great pestos. Unfortunately, they're also nearly as expensive as pine nuts. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make 3 different pestos. Pesto 3 ways. We're going to have a spinach pesto with cashews. We're going to do a kale and arugula pesto with walnuts. And I'm also going to do a tomato pesto with no nuts. And we're going to show you a few different ways to use all of these. So the first thing we're going to do, we'll do the spinach first. Spinach is so easy. And here's the funny thing. I was just talking to somebody earlier today about my pestos and how I never measure anything. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to attempt to give you a couple of measurements to make it just a little bit easier for you. So here's a cup of packed spinach. We'll probably put in 2 or 3 of these. It's pretty easy. We'll say about 2 cups of packed spinach. We're going to put in some raw and unsalted cashews, and that'll be just maybe a third of a cup. We're also going to add a pinch of salt. Now, garlic is a thing that most of the time in most recipes, we've all been conditioned that if a recipe calls for 1 clove of garlic, that means a bulb. That means a ton of garlic because we like garlic. Garlic is good. It's tasty. It's aromatic. We just like using it. In these particular recipes, the pestos, I like to use 1 clove of garlic. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this up into slightly smaller pieces. What I'm going to do next is I have a bottle of our olio nuovo, which literally translated means new oil. Our oils are brought in to us by a few different sources, and they come in from all around the world until I get a consistency that I like. And then what you can also do, you should also keep a rubber spatula handy, and then every once in a while you can scrape down the sides. Now, one of the things about pesto, when you're doing it in a food processors are great, they're easy, but they also generate a little bit of heat from the friction as the blade spins around. So what we try to do here at home, if we want to add cheese, what we're going to do is we're going to add that later. So one of the things I'm going to show you how this works. I'm just going to put up the pesto in the bowl, and then what I'm going to do is by hand, I'm going to add a little bit of the cheese. Now the nuts by themselves add enough texture that you really don't need the cheese. The cheese at this point for these recipes is really just all about flavor. If you like that extra bit of salty and then the creamy look, and then that's it. That's all there is to it. It doesn't take much. And the cashews, again, add a wonderful texture. And the next pesto we're going to do is a kale and rocket, or arugula. It's a blend. You can just use arugula. It's got a really nice peppery taste. I like using that. Today, I could not get just the arugula, so we got an arugula and kale blend, and I believe that is going to work just fine. We're going to go, again, with about 2 cups of the 2 packed cups of the kale and arugula. Again, with a pinch of salt, 1 single clove of garlic that I'm going to cut up just a little bit. And for this one, we're going to use walnuts. And again, about 1/2 cup. And then we're going to put in some olive oil to get it started. Remember to keep your spatula handy so you can scrape down the sides. Get this going. And we're going to scrape it down here 1 time. Again, super easy. Not much to it. And then we're going to pull out our nice, well-blended pesto. And you see how easy this is. We don't have to use a mortar and pestle. We can just do this, and you can do this with or without cheese. And last but not least, we're going to do one of my favorites, a sun-dried tomato pesto. And what I like best about this is it's great on pasta. It is great as a pizza topper. We just spread it over a pre-made crust and a little bit of cheese, and it makes a great pizza. And then I also use it as part of my breakfast. So we're going to put in about 1 cup of these semi-dried, sun-dried tomatoes. There's different kinds of sun-dried tomatoes. There's the ones that are really super dry. Then there's packed in oil and put in a jar. And then there's these semi-dried, which I really like for this in particular. And then I'm just going to throw in a handful of grape tomatoes. And this is going to give it just enough, almost just enough moisture. And then what I also like to do is throw in you don't want to put in salt with this one. There's enough of a sodium taste in the tomatoes where you just don't need to do that. But I do like to throw in a little spritz of lemon juice, which I don't have handy right at the moment. But this is going to be super awesome when it's done. And that's all it takes to do this. This one here, we can use this to we can put it over as a sauce for a pizza. We can put it over a dish of pasta. We can put it on a piece of toast with some fresh cheese. This pesto is one of my personal favorites that we use in our house pretty often. We're just going to dress up a little bit of it with a little bit of this. You do not need the cheese. It is completely unnecessary in this particular dish. If you like, you can take a little bit of the hot starchy water from your pasta, put that in there to thin it out, and it makes a nice creamy sauce. So that's it. That's pesto 3 ways, and we hope you enjoyed seeing these recipes made, and we hope that you want to try them at home for yourself. Thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.